Well, it's safe to say Marion and Len's dream trip around WA hit a few road bumps. First, their car and caravan broke down. Then more issues trying to get them back to Melbourne. But what happened next left their retirement in limbo.
Marion and Len Barry had long been dreaming of their adventure across Western Australia.
This is Wave Rock.
And because I'd always wanted to go and see the wildflowers, and headed for Geraldton to start, and then round to Albany, and of course it all stopped in Albany.
I then happened to notice that the temperature gauge that the engine was getting hot. So we stopped.
And with a flash of the engine light, the retirees' bucket list trip was over.
They said, we'll fly you home and we will arrange the transport of the car and the caravan home.
Their car and caravan were insured with QBE and AAMI, but their roadside assist cover was with the RACV, who said their vehicles would be returned to their Maribyrnong home in Melbourne within 20 business days.
And then when that expired, I rang them again, and they said, oh, your car's in Adelaide, they'll be back Monday, terrific. And then they rang back 20 minutes later and said, no, your car's still in Perth.
And the problem was these avid travellers were heading off again in a few days.
We had a trip booked to Japan, so getting the car and the caravan back so that we could store them beforehand was really important.
I was trying to explain the urgency of getting it back by by the day before we were due to go overseas. And on every occasion, yes, they agreed, we understand, and we'll get it back to you.
The day before jetting off to Japan, still no sign of their car or caravan, and the couple was getting anxious.
They said they would keep it in storage.
But that didn't happen. Both got delivered just after they'd left and just before the devastating Maribyrnong floods hit. Whilst in the air, a tow truck company sent Len this text message he didn't read until landing in Japan.
At that stage, it was in my driveway.
Way too late.
Way too late.
You must have felt sick when you got that text.
Oh, my heart sank. And it was just hours later that our house was flooded and the car and caravan were written off.
The Maribyrnong floods in October last year were disastrous. Families rescued and more than 500 homes inundated. Precious belongings all lost in the sodden mess, including Marion and Len's beloved car and caravan, which should never have been there.
The towie left it along the fence here, and of course it was sort of just dumped. You're looking at sort of this type of height, so you can imagine what that did to the car and the caravan.
You had sort of one blow and then another one on top just to make sure you couldn't stand up. And in the event, they didn't do what they said they'd do.
If the RACV had not broken their word on this, our car and caravan would have been fine, and when we returned from Japan, we would have had some options for immediate accommodation.
Insurance companies can be notoriously slow, but in Marion and Len's case, both QBE and AAMI were actually very quick to pay the couple out for the caravan and the car. The problem is, they say, those payouts don't even come close to covering the cost to buy replacements.
So they've amounted to about half the replacement value. So we're asking RACV to top up the other half, which is about $53,000.
Lawyer Amy Dartnell at Gordon Legal.
We sent them a letter in December of last year and just heard nothing.
Sad and disappointing, very disappointing.
Understandably so, says Amy, given their 50 years of loyalty to the RACV.
It was pretty negligent. They had an agreement, they breached it. The RACV person that they spoke to actually admitted that there are call logs documenting the agreement, and that is quite important because it means that something went wrong internally at RACV.
Waiting for a response and waiting to move home, Marion and Len are still living in limbo in a nearby rental.
Our house has had to be completely restored. That's our oven, and they're going to put it back in and then see if it works.
Their negligence cost us thousands of dollars, apart from the fact that we were flooded out.
Well, finally, good news for Marion and Len. Since we got involved, RACV has agreed to compensate them the full amount so they can now buy that new car and caravan. So time to hit the road again, Marion and Len. Enjoy.